This class is all about how to create form on a botanical subject. And that is a very important thing since without form or three dimension, the object does not have its lifelike quality. In order to create form, what you need are highlights and shadows. Now, all our tints are created by tinting the local color of the subject. But with shadows, you have three options for creating shadows on a subject. One is just by the addition of neutral tint, which we talk about in the assignment sheet. One is creating what's called a grisaille or botanical gray, which is a mixture of the three primaries, and I have given you a list of those in your assignment sheet as well. Or the last one, which is using the complement of the color, which also kind of creates a neutralization of the color, but it is done in layers, so you get a much more vibrant and exciting look to those colors. So what I've laid out here in front of us is I'm going to use orange for my techniques. So I'm going to show you just by using the orange how these shadows seem to manifest themselves. So I'm going to do a little orange here. I'll make 3 swatches of orange so you can see what these things will look like with differing shadow possibilities. And as you can see, I'm doing a graded tone because when you start working with form, you always end up with graded washes. All right, so we're going to wait for these to dry, and then I will show you how we can either overlay color or we can even mix the color in order to get our shadows. Now, so that we can do all of these at the same time, what I want to do is mix up some botanical gray so that we have everything ready to go when we're ready to paint these swatches. So we're going to start with some ultramarine blue, which is one of the recipes on the list. And to the ultramarine blue, we're going to add some permanent rose, which gives us a very nice purple. And then the last thing we want to do is add some cadmium yellow pale. And we're going to test this. Now, if we take a look at this color, you can see that it has a little bit of a yellow cast to it. If I want it to look a little bluer, and sometimes that might be the case, I would add a little blue to this botanical gray. That's a very nice gray. Or if I wanted to have a red cast to it, I would add a little bit more permanent rose to this mix. All right, so there you have a botanical gray that has a red leaning to it. Now, why do I say these are all possibilities? Because, for instance, if you decided that you're going to use a botanical gray for your painting, and say you have yellow flowers, daffodils, zinnias, marigolds, you might want your botanical gray to lean a little towards the yellow, which will give it a more unified look. If you're doing bluebells, or if you're doing bachelor buttons, which are blue, you might want to go with a little bit more of a blue leaning botanical gray. The same is true with if you're doing a red flower, roses, you might want to lean the botanical gray to the red that is in the rose. And if you make your botanical gray with Scarlet Lake, because of the color of the rose, then you would have a whole different look than what we have here. Well, I'm going to mix this botanical gray up so that it's really closer to this middle gray, which is a blue, which is leans towards the opposite of orange. Just so you can see, I'm going to use neutral tint, I'm going to use the complement, and I'm going to use the botanical gray so you can see how the shadows affect each color. My suggestion is that when you make the botanical gray, that you absolutely make sure you mix enough of it. And I would even put it in a little separate dish. You know, you can take some of it and dilute it and then use it for your whatever subject that you're painting. I happen to like this botanical gray, so I've saved it. You can adjust it if you need to, but put it into a separate dish or put it into a little canister so that it becomes something that you can use as a reference for further painting. I'm going to use it because I like it. But this is how you make your botanical gray, is mixing your three primaries together. And as I say, it's going to take a little jockeying to figure out what you want. But once you have something that you really like, make sure you've made enough of it. So the first one I'm going to do is going to be, I'm going to add a little neutral tint to this yellow, or to this orange swatch. I'm going to, in the next one, I'm going to add some botanical gray. And to the last one, I'm going to add the complement. Now, we're going to take our orange here. Actually, we're just going to take our black. We're going to take our neutral tint, and we're going to dilute it down so that it's quite thin. Because you don't want to have so much dark in here. You can always control it later, but I want to, in this particular instance, I just want to show you how it changes the color. So this is what neutral tint does to that orange in order to create a shadow. We're going to do the same thing with botanical gray. We're just going to thin it down and use a nice thin layer of botanical gray. And we're going to lay that down on our orange sample. And the last one, we're going to take the blue, thin it down, and we're going to lay the blue on top of our orange sample. Here. Now that you've got all of your shadow colors set up, the next thing you have to do is set up the exercise itself.